Welcome to SmartPod, the podcast from Smart Security Solutions. I'm Andrew Selden, the editor of Smart Security Solutions, and today we're going to be talking about cybersecurity, and we have some new news about cyber insurance as well. So our guests today are Pieter Nel, he's the Sales Director SADC at Sophos, and Sarel Lamprecht, the Managing Director at Phishield. So the reason for this podcast is that recently Sophos released its State of Ransomware report. It does one every year. I think it's done one for the past 6 years. And it includes global research on ransomware as well as some South Africa-specific research. And for me, one of the astounding findings in the research is that nearly 50% of the companies hit with ransomware actually pay the ransom. So that was kind of weird for me. So before we go into the research, let me welcome our guests today. Pieter and Sarel, welcome. Maybe we can start out if you guys, Pieter first, maybe seeing you next on my screen. If you can just tell us about yourself and your company briefly.
Yeah, thanks for having me, first of all. Thanks for having us. So my name is Pieter Nel. I've been at Sophos now for the last 17 years, building this brand that I love. We are an end-to-end cybersecurity company, so we focus mainly on cybersecurity itself, and we don't do anything else. So cybersecurity is our bread and butter, and that's what we specialize in. So just for the listeners as well, I think cybersecurity is quite a wide discussion, isn't it? It's so many different entry points. Everyone's always worried about, are we going to get attacked? When are we going to get attacked? I always make a comment with any discussion. It's no longer if, it's more of a discussion of when. So just to make sure all the listeners understand, there's no silver bullet in any vendor. I don't care what anyone tells you. That's why the partnership we're going to talk about today, it's definitely going to be in those lines of why that's important to have certain OEMs and let's say certain partnerships that's going to be critical to enhance customers. So for me, I've got this personal vendetta. I've got this personal goal in life. And that's always going to be, if you have to go and sum up the cybersecurity market, you're going to get your defenders and attackers. Your defenders is the community that we all serve, that we love, that the customers that need to be protected. The attackers in the market, I've got this mindset that we want to beat them. And the current ransomware report we just spoke about, that we're going to talk about today as well, is quite a reflection of what's happening in the world on what's the real reality behind ransomware. For me, that is one of the biggest highlights for me. After the last 6 years, you spoke about the last 6 years, we actually been doing this report. But you can definitely see that the impact was worse in the last couple of 5 years. And this was the best report we had in the last 6 years. That we can see that we as a community is standing up against the attackers. And I don't think we're winning the fight, not all, but at least we're making it life difficult for them. And that is exactly what this report reflects, ultimately.
Cool, okay. Yeah, it actually was some very interesting stats in the report.
Yeah.
Sarel, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, and welcome to all the listeners in today. I definitely won't be introducing myself as long as Pieter did, but Sarel Lamprecht, I'm one of the founders of Phishield. We've been doing cyber insurance for both consumers and businesses for 10 years now. It's all that we do, and we are an underwriting management agent on the insurance side, which means we administrate, develop insurance products, and also write the policy wording and just try and stay ahead of the changing landscape of cyber claims specifically. And we are extremely excited to work with Sophos, Pieter specifically, through this introduction, and excited to see what the future holds for this partnership.
Cool. Yeah, and we'll be talking about that partnership in a couple of minutes. But Firstly, Pieter, if I can ask you, sort of in a nutshell, can you tell us what the major sort of global findings, let's start out globally, what the findings were from the latest report?
Well, that's a lot to talk about then, but I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible and as short as possible to see where's the impact. So the main reason or the root cause for most of the attacks we currently see in the market, I think is really important to understand. It was mainly from exploited vulnerabilities. I think the stats was just over 34% of average of what the attackers are doing. They try to exploit vulnerabilities in environments. Secondly, it was harvesting of credentials, and also from still the social engineering that comes down to your phishing attacks. So I always tell customers as well that it just takes one hit into your arm as a business to exploit. So they will use different exploit techniques, but social engineering is definitely, for me, the biggest focus. So I always try to combine the two of the credential harvesting and the phishing attacks almost as the same umbrella, because it's almost very similar attacks that the guys are doing, and they try to get information from the business. So that is still, the human element is still one of the biggest challenges for any businesses today.
Okay, well, yeah. The human element or the human vulnerability is one of the biggest and hardest to fix, actually.
Yeah. And even with AI coming across, I think everyone's so openly talking about AI. AI can be great for your business. Yes, it can be, but it can also be a massive weakness for a business. I did a seminar recently where we spoke about the power of AI. So, but if you don't utilize the power of AI to the fullest what it was built for, if you don't give them the arms and legs to go and do something for you, AI can become a risk for your business fully. There's a term that we use in our market. They're called living off the land. This is where they utilize legitimate resources that you use in your business against you as a business. So the more complex the more you add to your network, the more complex you make your network. That means you expand the attack surfaces for the attackers. So don't always think it's yes, we have to evolve with cybersecurity and also with new technology, but that comes with a lot of new risks. And that means sitting in the shoes of a CISO today, or a CTO or CIO, whoever's taking that risk. I don't want to be there. Hopefully, I'm going to tell you that. That's a hard risk job. I'm going to tell you that. I'd rather be in this shoes, this side of the table. But all I can say, we can give a lot of advice to customers on what's best practice, what's not best practice.
Yeah, no, CISO is a bit of a stressful job at the moment.
Definitely.
What about being an underwriter?
Think about that.
Also true, yeah. Okay, Pieter, again, in terms of South Africa's specific figures, what did this report talk about?
Yeah, that's what I told you. This was one of the best reports I've seen in the last 6 years, to be honest with you. We can see that, yes, we had a lot of attacks in the market. Yes, there were successful attacks. But what I like about the new report, you can definitely see we're making it more difficult for attackers. So the one thing about the report, I highly recommend anyone to go and read it. But in the report, you can see that now, yes, they are doing attacks. But what happened in the South African market is we have a much quicker response to identify the attack and to isolate it and to make sure the impact of the business is minimized. That, for me, is a big one. So please have a look at it. The negative on the report was that because we make it more and more difficult for the attackers to get into our businesses, when they get in, they now have 3 times the normal rate for ransom. So we went from $150,000 in the average charge now to $450,000 as a ransomware cost. And that excludes the impact of the business and to rebuild your business. So we have to think about that part as well. So that's a ransomware cost is one area that you have to pay for the ransom. Then you have to think about the impact of the business for brand damage, to rebuild your network and to get you up and running again. I think the average was $1.3 million. So you can say it's going to cost you at least about 20 million rand just for any ransomware attack. So now you're sitting with a difficult choice. You have to sit there with, am I going to invest in the different technology, like in cyber insurance and the likes of the Sophos of this world, or you're going to take the risk for non-compliance? Your customers will walk away from you, because why would you deal with a customer that leaked your information? So that means there will be to customers and financial losses, ultimately. That's all in the current report.
Okay, yeah. People often think it's just the amount you pay to the cyber criminals, but it's more to actually recover and get back up and running again.
And also to make sure that they're no longer on your network. I think that's one of the biggest risks for any CISO, is to say, yes, they're in my network. To pinpoint where was the entry point, are they still there? Are they still somewhere as a silent malware sitting in the environment, or some form of just idling and waiting for you to get comfortable, then they hit you again. So It's not a place to be.
Absolutely, yeah. You had a webinar, or Sophos held a webinar a few weeks ago about the report. Pieter, you mentioned that the total spend in 2024 on cybersecurity in South Africa was $700 million, which is like quite hectic. I mean, where is all that money being spent?
So this is a scary part. This was from the Canales report. There's a report that we all follow. This was South African data that's in the Canales report that I'll make available to all the listeners as well. They can go and do some reading. But in the report, it stipulates that they forecast 12.5% growth in spend to get to $720 odd million as a local market. And it's broken down to, I'll say about 40% of the full spend comes to vendors like us, and about 60% of the remaining funds is mainly on your SLAs with your resellers and the likes of a SOC service, a SIM, SOAR. And the new term is MDR. MDR is a managed detect and response, is where we're not just going to manage the network, we're not just going to detect a risk, but we can respond on the customer's behalf. Because the sooner you respond, the quicker we can isolate an incident. That means they can't spread into your network. That's why we're by far the biggest MDR provider in the world currently as it is, as Sophos. And we can definitely talk about this for days, to be honest with you. But I don't want to make this a product session, but I want to make sure this is more of an education session. So just know that the spend is going up, the risk is going up, the more attack surface is going up. That means we were always going to have an increase in spend because we have to make sure that our business stays secure and we can future-proof our business. It doesn't help you have this amazing business that you want to run, but you don't invest in to make sure it's secure. That's always my biggest advice to customers where they stipulate, I don't have budget. I think this is something that most people will come across at the CFO level. I don't have budget to spend. But as soon as they can compromise this budget because they need to get the business up and running. So I want organizations to understand as well, when you have a business that you need to, that you have families that you provide for, secure your business. You have to do it.
Absolutely. Okay, and that brings us to the partnership that you guys are announcing, Sophos and Phishield. I don't know, maybe Sarel or Pieter, whoever wants to make the announcement and tell us what's happening.
Sarel, I can leave this to you.
Yeah, well, I have a few comments to make on the report itself and just how the landscape from an insurance perspective is, where Pieter mentioned what the average cost for ransomware was. And that is true that if you get compromised, your business, you need to determine, was data exfiltrated? Is it in the public domain? Because you will then get fined. Everyone is aware of the data protection laws, and a reasonable benchmark that is fairly standard that's been running the last couple of years, let's say 5 years in the world, and specifically then tweaked for South Africa also, is a report by IBM where they determine the average cost of a data breach. And I haven't seen the new report, but the one from last year, the average cost of a breach, that excludes the ransom demand. They don't see it as a portion of an actual loss. That's the knock-on effect of when you get breached, whether it's through ransomware or just someone being, well, a human. I think it was 53 million last year. Now that's spread across all businesses in South Africa. And we are below the global average. So that's the average for, let's say, your mom and pop shop up to your potential large corporate. So you can work out a rule of thumb, more or less, is you should be able to afford, depending on the technology you have in place, roughly between 2 and 3 months worth of downtime of operational capacity. That's what the global average is. I think it's about 67 or 68 days, as per the previous report, that companies are shut down, that they can't do anything. Now, if you translate that into a company that is, let's say, dependent on business, that's not consulting or anything, that's pretty much 2 to 3 months worth of turnover that's gone. And you should be able to absorb that above and beyond what all the fines are that you're going to experience to restore your data. That's just pure business income loss. So it becomes a significant amount that businesses can lose. And like Pieter said, people said they have no budget, make budget, or otherwise when it happens, you're either not going to survive. Also, what I wanted to get to, how this partnership came about. In the reports, there's typically a benchmark of certain technologies, the impact that it could potentially have on the cost reduction of what a loss can be if a breach happens. I came across a colleague at Bright Insurance, who's our underwriter, Bright Insurance Company Limited, where they mentioned that there's a security vendor that potentially has a breach warranty, a digital warranty. And I was interested to find out. I was like, okay, let's see where this rabbit hole goes, and came via one of Sophos's resellers. We had a meeting and then said, well, let's go talk to the mothership. And the initial outset of what it could have been versus what Pieter then said, what they did on the MDR layer, which is a culmination of plenty of the risk mitigating technologies from a cost mitigating factor. All of that is under one umbrella. And I said, well, here's real synergy. And when we started talking, the misconception in the market predominantly is people or companies feel that they're spending a bulk load of money on IT infrastructure and security, And from an insurance perspective, their premiums, depending what the market is doing, that just keeps on increasing and increasing. And no one is really acknowledging the impact that the technologies has on potential losses. So when we started talking, the impact that they have, we quantified it to say, okay, based on certain elements in isolation, this is what the impact can have, specifically on a loss from our end if a breach occurs. And we are willing to acknowledge by working together that we don't want a part of the security spend pie, and they don't want a slice of our pie, but we would rather just acknowledge on what they're doing and start working together, because your technology layer will only take you so far. As long as you have humans in a company, the likelihood of a breach is, well, it's always going to be there. And unfortunately, no amount of technology can stop it. However, what technology can do, and that's what Pieter also led to in the ransomware report, is it's not when you get breached, it's what you do when it happens. How long do you take to get back up and running as cost effectively and as quick as possible? Where if you can bring that, just as an example, that 2.5 to 3 month downtime, if you can bring that down to a couple of weeks to maybe a month, that is a significant impact on the potential losses. And that's how the synergy became. And we said, well, okay, how can we partner together just to acknowledge what the security industry is doing, and by incorporating that into the insurance industry.
So how does this partnership work? Is it, if Sophos or its partners installs cybersecurity or does a security audit and gets a certain number of points, then what kind of insurance goes along with that?
Pieter?
Yeah, I don't mind taking this as well. So my feedback on the partnership, to be honest with you, I think it's a great synergy that because we as a vendor, we're doing every single thing to keep our customers safe. That's our main goal. To be honest, it's a customer experience and make sure that they don't get breached. So we want to minimize the risk, and that's why the synergy works, because if something happens, we have a fail-safe, and that's going to be for cyber insurance. That's really important. But part of the partnership, coming back to your question, is the benefit for the customers. There's a major benefit for the customer, because if they go with our technology and Sophos MDR, there's a cost impact to, and also a discount premium that's being offered from Phishield. They say if you use our technology, as because they know it's a trusted product, it was quite a full, comprehensive process for us to be selected. It's not just, hey, we like Pieter, we're going to give him the business, but it came down that they can truly see the value add from us as a business. So we will minimize the risk. That means the customer will have less risk, a better hygiene as a business, but that means there's lower risk for Sarel and them to onboard. That means the premium will be lowered as well. That means the customer impact, they will have a saving when it comes to their cyber insurance premiums if they use our technologies.
And also to add to that is the awareness creation in the market. What we've found is independent brokers, when they go out into the market to their clients, is how a quote originated. The biggest portion of the insurance broker market is uncomfortable proactively going out to their clients and saying to them, this is why you need insurance. Whereas the IT and security specialists, they already have the clients on board. So they know and understand the technology layer way better than what an insurance broker will ever do. So in terms of creating awareness, because I believe the market penetration for businesses is probably around 20% in the market, and a heck of a lot of businesses that really need it don't have the insurance. So is to say, if they are spending on security, just say how the two markets work together to say, yes, you are spending, and as an additional risk that you have for probably 30 to 35% of your risk, you probably need insurance. It's not a case of you need the one or the other. You more than likely need both. It's a concentric fail-safe parachute that the people need to put in place. And because of that, we are creating awareness through Sophos and their distributors and resellers, apart from just the normal insurance broker. It's a case of education. Globally, cyber insurance exponentially, or the take-up on insurance exponentially increases when there's regulation that is being enforced. And yes, we do have POPIA, but the enforcement side of it is still lacking. So when there's going to be a big push from a regulation point in terms of enforcing, you will probably see the take-up. So we're trying to do our bit together with Sophos and their distribution channel to just say, well, it's not a case of either or. You need both.
Right.
Fully agree.
Pieter, in terms of Sophos, you go to market, I don't know, do you do direct work with customers, or is it all through the channel? And if it's through the channel, for people to get this deal with Phishield, are your channel installers or technicians, do they have to be certified on Sophos products? So I can't go out and say, here's a Sophos product and you get a discount kind of thing.
So we are 100% channel focused as a business, fully channel. Yes, we are very much hands-on as a local team. We do engage a lot directly with end customers. I think customers want to see the vendor when they're specialists in the market. They want to get that right advice from day one. And I believe that's also a major cause for breaches is people that's got lack of understanding, lack of skills. We have a massive skill gap in our industry. So yes, we are 100% channel, but we expect our partners to get trained. We do offer our training for our resellers. It's online, available at no cost. We want to enable our market. I think that we are a big believer in that as well. Even for customers, in customers, we always encourage them, please educate yourself. If you need assistance, phone us. We'll help you to get educated, no problem.
Okay. And Sarel, just talking about education, do you, shall I say, encourage the people who are paying premiums to you to actually do end user training, so that they don't click on that link or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, you can say it's, you want people to become the human firewall. I know it's cheesy, but it works. and normally part and parcel of your underwriting criteria is that there should be, at least in a business, a company-wide employee awareness training with regards, not specifically phishing attacks, but also going further, that cybersecurity as a rule, just in general, to become more aware, because the goalposts, they keep on changing. So you need constant training and education just to keep up, not even get ahead with how that market is shifting. So yes, we do definitely ask people to constantly do it. We also have, through partnership programs, awareness training programs, but that's something that is fairly available. And this is not a product discussion at all. It's just, yes, absolutely. That is probably the biggest impact that you can have on a company and even in your own personal capacity is constant awareness training and keep upskilling yourself.
Thank you very much. It took a bit longer than expected, but I think there were some good conversations there. Pieter Nel and Sarel Lamprecht, thank you. Appreciate your input. And I will include links to the companies and the reports along with the podcast. So thank you guys for your time. Appreciate that. Hope it goes well for you guys, and especially for the guys out there who are under attack.
Thanks for having us, by the way.
Thank you,
I appreciate it.